In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And creativity, strategic thinking, and friendship. Hey everyone, it's Adrian from Tabletop Titans, here today to answer the age-old question, what is Warhammer 40k even? If you've come here asking yourself what your loved one has gotten into, or perhaps you've heard hushed whispers of this strange Warhammer thing and think you might be interested, you've come to the right place. Let's take a look. Warhammer 40,000, or Warhammer 40k as it's commonly referred to, is first and foremost a tabletop miniature game. It's like a really fancy board game that's extremely open-ended and has lots of different ways to play it. In the game, players pit their collections of models against each other in battles, where there are rules similar to any board game, even chess, or if you're familiar with it, the combat in Dungeons & Dragons. The goal of each game depends on the mission being played. In some cases, armies are fighting a bloody battle to the death, or more often, they have to secure strategic points on the battlefield and accomplish certain goals before the game ends. One thing that often strikes people who are unfamiliar to Warhammer as odd is the way that models come when we buy them. They all arrive unassembled and unpainted, and usually all attached to a frame, which is called a sprue. Hobbyists then must cut, clean, and build these models using a hobby knife and glue. Once the model is built, it can then be painted using teeny tiny little brushes and brought to life. This may seem like a lot of work just to be able to get your models ready to play, but it's a huge part of the hobby. Warhammer 40k is not just about the game, or even just about the models. One of the things that makes it great is that there are so many ways to enjoy it. Some people prefer one aspect, others another, and others still enjoy them all. The story of the game is the biggest and most impactful part of Warhammer. It's a massive intellectual property that spans across several genres, from countless New York Times best-selling novels to a veritable plethora of video games. The story exists in a multitude of ways and actually comprises of the majority of people's interactions with the universe. They even now have a TV show in the making, covering the legendary story of Inquisitor Eisenhorn from one of the best-selling series. The story itself takes place in the far future of our own universe, in which Earth has been long ago conquered by a single ruler, the Emperor, who now presides over all of humanity. In order to conquer the galaxy, he created the Space Marines, genetically engineered super soldiers who over several decades led a crusade to do just that and conquer the known universe. However, many of them would later be tricked or led to betrayal by the Dark Gods, demonic entities that present the largest villains in the game. The Space Marines, their traitorous brethren, and the demonic forces that trick them all form armies that you can play in the game. There's also, of course, good old-fashioned humans, a legion of cyborg warriors from Mars, which is the new industrial capital of the Imperium, and, appropriately, an existential horror in the shape of hordes of ravenous aliens. There's robot legions of the undead, wild spacefaring orcs, and of course, futuristic space elves, in the form of the good, the bad, and the strange? These are just some of the playable armies in this vast and complex universe known as Warhammer 40k, but it doesn't end there. While the Warhammer 40k game is the flagship product of Games Workshop, there are several offshoots of it exploring different facets of the narrative and vastly different game types. There's one-off board games such as Blackstone Fortress and Speed Freaks, as well as fully fleshed out smaller scale games such as Kill Team and Necromunda. And yes, there's even a Warhammer 40k Monopoly and Munchkin. All these and more exist on the merit of this incredibly vast and impactful narrative universe. Next, we have the hobby aspect of the game. As you can imagine, building and painting an army can be an entire hobby in and of itself. And for many people, this is the pinnacle of Warhammer 40k. There's so much fantastic content out there where people can learn how to improve their skills and build, paint, and even customize their own models for their collection. People collect, convert, and design entirely new models from the baseline Games Workshop products. Additionally, the construction of individual pieces of terrain for games is a booming industry. From MDF cutouts that you assemble yourself to fully painted pieces, you can find it all. There's even companies specialized in the mat that you play on. All in all, the hobby aspect of Warhammer 40k is another massive ecosystem of creativity and community. Within the game itself, there are so many different ways to play it. Every person has their own preference. There's narrative missions and campaigns, which mostly closely resemble Dungeons & Dragons because the main goal is to tell an epic story and not focus overly on the strategic or tactical elements of the game. Each battle contributes to an overall story that players participate in, and by the end they've created their own Warhammer 40k stories to retell. Also within the game, you can find matched play, where players focus on how to crush their opponents in highly competitive games. Pitting their wits against their opponents, they try to optimize their army and their playstyles to win. This version of the game is probably most similar to things like chess, where both players have a great time trying to outwit their opponents and are constantly sharing tactics and ideas on how to improve. Lastly, of course, Warhammer 40k is a large and thriving community. People all around the world play the game together, from coffee table games to huge conventions containing literally thousands of players, all celebrating the game that they love with friends, both old and new. In each of these different elements of Warhammer, we have the story, the hobby, the playing. They all contain camaraderie, community, and friendship. And really, this is what makes it so incredible. Whether you're swapping war stories from your last game, sharing painting techniques, or debating whether or not Magnus did anything wrong, you're building bonds and friendships that last a lifetime. And really, truly, isn't that why Warhammer is so amazing? Hopefully that helps shed a little bit of light on this massive ephemeral thing that is Warhammer 40,000 that we know and love. Let us know in the comments below if this was helpful to you, and what are your favorite aspects of Warhammer 40,000? As always, if you did enjoy it, do like and subscribe, as that helps us continue to create this content. We'll catch you all next time on the tabletop.